Congressman Mike Waltz. For our briefing this morning, Congressman, disturbing pictures out of the nation's capital. National Guard troops who were there to defend the Capitol, defend our country, being relegated by the Washington police to go to sleep in a parking garage where they're inhaling exhaust fumes. They're trying to relax and sleep on concrete with fluorescent lights instead of having some kind of a comfortable place for them to rest overnight. I don't even see how in this country we can allow that to happen. I need to ask you your thoughts.
Yeah, Mark, it's disgusting. I'm going to get to the bottom of it. I talked to some of the guardsmen that were there. You know, I'm still serving in the National Guard. And apparently, I mean, it just sickens me to even say this. Apparently, some members and some staffers were complaining about them taking their breaks, between their shifts, lying, often they would just take the breaks and lie on the floor or in the office buildings. So some have been moved to the Capitol's Visitor Center, but some have they've basically been kind of kicked out. And it's ridiculous. And we're going to get to the bottom of it.
Turning to a couple of other matters, you're opposing the waiver for General Austin to be the Secretary of Defense. What's going on with that? What happened?
Yeah, so this is a law that's been on the books since World War II that essentially that says if you're a recently retired general, you cannot then become the civilian overseer of the institution that you just left. I think the law is right. We just recently, we haven't given a waiver in 67 years to this law, but we will have now, if we give this one, 2 in the last 4. And why that's problematic is twofold. One, what a civilian overseer brings is a different mindset and a different set of experiences in law or business and civil society over the military. And, Mark, where we're having problems, you and I have talked about it, particularly with China, isn't in, tanks, planes, and ships. It's in manufacturing. It's in shipbuilding. It's in raw materials that make up our computer chips, artificial intelligence, and robotics research. Those are the types of skill sets that we need. And then separately, what I'm really worried about is you're going to start having 3- and 4-star generals kind of auditioning for the job and influencing their thinking and politicizing our military if we keep granting these waivers. So for those reasons, I'm voting against this waiver for Biden's Secretary of Defense nominee.
Okay. Tell me about this letter that you sent to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee to make sure, I guess, that all Biden nominees condemn human rights violations in Venezuela and Cuba? Yeah,
essentially what we're seeing, Mark, by these nominees is the third term of Obama. Biden is nominating people that were in the number 2 or number 3 slots under Obama into the number 1 and number 2 slots for himself. And we cannot return to this open door policy when it comes to Cuba and Venezuela. It's this underlying philosophy, Mark, that, if we're nice to dictators, they'll be nice back to us and they'll be nice to their own people. And that just couldn't be further from the truth. I struggle to think of a single foreign policy accomplishment under Obama. You had Russia on the march in Crimea and the Ukraine, China on the march in South China Sea. Libya was a disaster. It was we can't return to all of that, and so we need to stake those lines in the sand right now.
And Congressman, I'm puzzled about something else. During his inaugural address and comments in the run-up to that, the president said that he wants to open up, I think, at least 100,000 new places to distribute the vaccine against COVID. That's not the issue. We've got plenty of places that we can give it. It's getting the vaccine. It's producing it, right?
Yeah, that's right. This is a supply issue. And we have the sites and we have the staff and the capability to get it out. They're just not producing enough of the vaccine and then pushing it out. So he needs to be talking about a manufacturing issue, not a distribution or a sites issue. But so I don't know what he was talking about there. I think, Mark, we have to keep in perspective that we have a vaccine at all is a miracle in and of itself in just a year rather than 3. But if Biden wants to improve things, he needs to be focusing on the production end.
On the subject of the COVID-19 $1.9 trillion the Biden administration wants to put together to deal with this, there's all kinds of money. This is what you and I feared. There's all kinds of money going to interest that doesn't make sense, like $20 million or something like this to Egypt. I mean, they loaded this bill with a bunch of pork to foreign countries.
Well, that's what they do every time. Instead of just having, I mean, that was my frustration with Nancy Pelosi. We had $130 billion for the small business paycheck protection program sitting there left over. We tried 19 times to get her to just narrowly vote on that without loading it up with all of these other progressive priorities. But that's exactly what they're doing again. And, I'm going to call it out and oppose it. But we do need help, Mark. I want to be clear, and I will support that help. But we can't have it loaded up with all of these other progressive priorities that they're just sliding in there, which will cause me and others to vote against it. And then they'll turn around and say, I don't want to help people that are suffering from COVID. And it's just politics at its worst.
Some of your constituents wanted me to ask you if, since we had a peaceful transition of power, was it an overreach for Washington to call in 25,000 National Guard troops, or do you think it was an appropriate show of strength that stopped people from acting out?
Well, I do think there was a deterrent effect. There were some threat streams, for additional armed protests is what they were called. Whether that was, what ultimately affected people's mindset, I don't know. But I'm hearing rumor that Speaker Pelosi wants to keep the National Guard there, and that I will oppose and call that out as well, because there's no additional reporting. We had a peaceful transfer, and these men and women have been pulled from their lives, from their jobs, from their businesses. It's disgusting. They're now getting kicked out of office buildings. They need to go back home. And keep in mind, Mark, our National Guard has done COVID relief, social, opposing and protecting from riots, from the social justice protests. They have their overseas mission. They have natural disasters and hurricanes and wildfires. And we just can't see whether it's Speaker Pelosi or the Capitol Police just keeping them there because they feel more comfortable with them.
Congressman Mike Waltz joining us with the briefing this morning on WNDB. Congressman, thank you so much for your time. Be safe and have a very good weekend, sir.